Hi, I'm Phil from the American Anglican Council with another episode of One Big Idea. This Sunday, we're looking at the scriptures in Joshua 24, Psalm 16, Ephesians 5, and continuing in the Gospel of John, that great passage about who Jesus really is around his great I am, the bread of life, saying, I want to carry on with the gospel as our one big idea. And that is that the one big idea is from John chapter 6, that we trust Jesus even when we don't fully understand. That's what saving faith is all about. We trust Jesus even when we don't fully understand his sayings. We embrace his hard sayings. We wrestle with them rather than walk away from them. And of course, we've been wrestling with his great hard saying last Sunday on eating my flesh and drinking my blood. F.F. Bruce wrote a wonderful book called The Hard Sayings of Jesus, where he put this as the preeminent hard saying and said, if I had to write a volume 2 of hard sayings of Jesus, I would do one just on the hard sayings in the Gospel of John. This was such a hard saying that it says in the gospel for this Sunday, from this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. You know, Jesus didn't dumb down his hard sayings. He didn't try to accommodate to the culture of his hearers. He actually raised the ante in this gospel, as we'll read, where he says basically, look, if you find this saying about eating my flesh and drinking my blood hard, you haven't seen nothing yet. You know, what about the cross? What about the future things that I'm going to go through? Jesus didn't run after them. He didn't beg them to come back. Instead, he turned to his disciples and said, do you want to leave me as well? And of course, we have this great statement from Peter. Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We believe and know that you are the Holy One of God. Peter didn't try to explain or understand or ask further questions. He said, look, Jesus, we trust you. You're the Holy One of God. Not only the truth of your sayings, but just who you are. And that's the lesson for us. We trust and follow Jesus even when we don't fully understand what he's saying, even when his sayings are hard to apply. So how do we apply this to the church and to the world around us? Well, in the church, I'm reminded of a great saying from St. Augustine. He said, if you believe what you like in the Gospels and reject what you don't like, it is not the gospel you believe, but yourself. What a powerful saying. You know, we are not free to pick and choose from the gospel as if it were a cafeteria line. We have to wrestle with the hard things that we find about what it means to follow Jesus, to leave everything, even to allow it to divide your family, his positions on marriage and sexuality. I mean, these are wildly unpopular and politically incorrect things to believe as Christians. But if we are in the position of accepting what we like and rejecting what we don't, then as Augustine says, we're not really following Jesus or the Gospels. We're just following ourselves. We are still enthroned on the throne of our life, not the gospel, not Jesus. This is a tough issue that needs to be faced in discipleship within our own churches and within the Anglican way. As comprehensive as it is, we do have some boundaries. And one of those boundaries is wrestling with the hard sayings of Jesus and following them even when we don't understand. What about the culture? How are we to respond to the culture all around us that would find these kinds of sayings about the exclusivity of Jesus elsewhere, where he says he's the resurrection and the life and the way, the truth, and the life? I love what John Milne, who is the author of the Bible Speaks Today series, on the volume that addresses the Gospel of John. And this is what he says in terms of our stance towards the culture. He says, among other things, it will mean that we remain true to Jesus when he and his word are dismissed. Being a true believer will mean following Jesus loyally when his truth is hard to understand and even harder to apply. When his claims seem largely contradicted by tangible realities, and when the multitudes turn away from him and we find ourselves part of a small and ostracized minority. It will mean being loyal to when among the company of the faithful we discover the work of the evil one in those who in life and word betray their Lord. It's hard. We're going to be salt and light, and it's going to be costly. But Lord, to whom shall we go? You're the only one that has words of eternal life. You're the truth. You're the way. You're the life. You're the ingredient, the bread of life that makes life worth living. And that's the only gospel we have, however hard it may be to accept it at all times. So let's wrestle. Let's not walk away. This is another episode of One Big Idea. God bless you, and we'll be back with you next week.